Dream of the Red Chamber, Chapter 90.
Think about what it takes to survive in a really high-stakes environment, right?
Yeah.
Like whether that is a cutthroat corporate office or, I don't know, a geopolitical arena. We tend to think about armor.
Oh, absolutely. Like having a thick skin.
Yeah, having a thick skin, holding leverage, wielding some kind of official power. But that traditional armor seems completely useless when you look at the landscape of today's source material.
It really does. It's totally irrelevant.
Because we are examining a world where the deadliest weapon isn't a sword, it isn't a boardroom veto. The deadliest weapon, the thing that can literally cure you or kill you in a matter of hours, is just a whisper.
Just a fragmented, overheard rumor.
Exactly. How people survive when they have absolutely zero official power.
Right, when they are entirely dependent on the flow of information.
Right. It is the absolute definition of an information economy.
But, I mean, we need to look at how that economy functions when the currency itself is just incredibly volatile, right?
Yeah.
Completely unregulated and entirely dependent on who happens to be standing on the other side of a paper-thin wall. In a closed society like this, information doesn't just represent power. It represents literal biological survival.
Okay, let's unpack this, because we have three main threads to explore today for you guys. First, we'll look at a dramatic near-death misunderstanding over a marriage proposal.
A huge misunderstanding.
Massive. Then we pivot to a cold, calculating, almost boardroom-style meeting among the family matriarchs who are, pulling this
You're
trap.
the power players.
Exactly. And finally, we will end up in a late-night psychological thriller involving a potentially poisoned or at least highly compromising gift of wine.
So much tension in that last one.
Oh, it's so stressful. So to understand the stakes of that first thread,
Yeah.
we have to look at the physical toll this information economy takes on a human body, right?
Yeah, we really do. Daiyu, I mean, her situation is catastrophic.
It's so bad.
She has reached a state described in the text as Julie.
Wait, what does that specific term imply in this context? Yeah. Because it sounds much more severe than just losing your appetite over a bad breakup.
Oh, it is. It translates roughly to cutting off all grain.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it means a complete, absolute refusal of all food. But the mechanism behind it is entirely psychological. She has lost the will to live because she believes the love of her life, Baoyu, has been engaged to someone outside the family.
Right, she thinks it's over.
Exactly. And the text shows us the physiological reality of this despair. I mean, she is drifting in and out of consciousness. Her mind is blurred. She has gone almost entirely silent.
It's just devastating.
It is. And for a noble woman in this era whose physical world is restricted to her inner chambers, her body is literally the only thing she has left to control. So starvation becomes her final tragic exercise of agency.
But the people caring for her, right, her maids, Ziwan and Suyan, they know exactly why she is dying.
They do. They know the exact rumor.
Right, and if you are listening to this and you've ever watched a friend spiral over a massive misunderstanding, your instinct is to intervene.
To
right?
just shake them and tell them the truth.
Exactly. You want to say, hey, you're wrong. Stop doing this to yourself.
So why are these maids completely paralyzed? Are they just incredibly naive, or do they understand the absolute weaponization of gossip in this household?
Oh, they absolutely understand it. It's because of the systemic laws governing their environment.
The matriarch of the family, Grandmother Jia, suspects an emotional trigger and actually interrogates these maids twice.
That's terrifying for them.
Terrifying, because the maids understand the mechanism of danger here. If Ziwan, who is the senior maid, tries to investigate the rumors to comfort Daiyu, and accidentally confirms that the outside engagement is real.
Oh, no.
Yeah, she effectively becomes the executioner. She speeds up Daiyu's death.
Because then there's no hope left at all.
Exactly. And the younger maid, Suyan, she is the one who originally let the rumor slip into Daiyu's ear in the first place.
Oh, the guilt she must feel.
So much guilt. She is absolutely terrified of the consequences of speaking again.
Which places all the narrative tension right in the center of Daiyu's bedroom. Ziwan essentially gives up. She leaves Suyan to watch over a comatose Daiyu and goes to warn the matriarchs that death is imminent.
It's a really bleak moment.
But the moment Ziwan leaves, the narrative introduces this catalyst. A visiting maid named Shishu walks in, and Suyan is so panicked by Daiyu's condition that she pulls Shishu aside and asks about the rumor. Let's look at the physical flow of this gossip. How does this critical piece of intel actually travel through the house?
The chain of custody for this information is a perfect example of how marginalized people piece together reality.
I love that phrase, chain of custody.
Because that's what it is. Shishu explains that the rumor of an outside engagement was technically real. I mean, people in the outer quarters were talking about it.
Okay.
And Shishu originally heard it from another maid, Xiaoang.
So that's 2 steps removed.
Right. But then the crucial update happened. Shishu was at the quarters of Shifeng, who is one of the main power players in the family.
Like the operational manager.
Exactly. And she overheard Shifeng talking to her trusted maid, Pinger.
Wait, so we're dealing with third-hand information gleaned from eavesdropping on a private conversation between a manager and her subordinate.
Precisely. That is how intelligence works here, and what Shishu overheard dismantles the entire premise of Daiyu's despair.
Okay, what did she hear?
Shifeng revealed that the outside proposal was just political maneuvering by men in the outer quarters trying to curry favor.
Like fake news.
Essentially, yes. The real mechanism of decision-making lies with Grandmother Jia, and Grandmother Jia insists on an internal marriage, a marriage within the immediate family circle.
The phrase used in the source is family tying knots with family.
Yes.
Swain, she hears that the outside engagement is fake. She tells Shishu, "You've basically killed Our Lady for nothing." The maids are having this incredibly high-stakes debate just feet away from Daiyu.
Literally right next to her bed.
They think she is unconscious, but she is completely lucid in this moment. She is absorbing every single word. But how does a single overheard conversation physically manifest as a near-death recovery? Because she does recover.
She does. And the text provides a fascinating philosophical framework for this mechanism. It uses the phrase yin-jiang sheng.
Yin-jiang sheng.
Yes, meaning from extreme yin comes yang. In traditional Chinese philosophy, this concept suggests that when a force reaches its absolute terminal extreme, it must inevitably invert into its opposite.
Okay, I want to challenge how that applies here, though, because Daiyu isn't just flipping a switch from sad to happy like magic. She is reconstructing her entire reality based on scraps of data.
Let's trace her logic, then. The extreme yin is her terminal despair, which is based on the assumption that Baoyu is marrying an outsider. She hits rock bottom. Then, the new data arrives. The outside engagement is fake, and the matriarch wants an internal marriage. Daiyu's brain applies a deeply flawed but immediate logic to this new data.
She thinks, I live in the garden.
Exactly. She thinks, I am family, therefore Grandmother Jia must mean me. The extreme yin of despair instantly inverts into the extreme yang of overwhelming life-saving hope.
Oh, wow. Yeah, think about the anxiety you feel when you send a highly vulnerable text message to someone you love, right?
Okay.
And you see the typing bubble appear.
That's the worst.
And then it just vanishes. It stays gone for hours. You spiral, your heart rate spikes. You convince yourself the relationship is over.
You start planning your whole life without them.
Exactly. And then you find out their phone simply died.
Oh, the relief.
The physiological relief is instantaneous. Your shoulders drop, your breathing normalizes. Daiyu's typing bubble was the rumor of the outside engagement. When that bubble pops, her physiological recovery begins instantly.
That modern anxiety response maps perfectly onto Daiyu's situation, but obviously with lethal stakes.
Right. Literally life or death.
And the text shows us the exact physical staging of this recovery. Zihuan walks back into the room, catches the maids whispering, and aggressively scolds them for spreading rumors near a dying woman.
She's just trying to protect her.
Exactly. The room goes silent, and then Daiyu coughs.
The cinematic detail here is stunning. Just a cough in a silent room.
Yes. Zihuan rushes to the bed and whispers, "Miss, would you like a sip of water?" Daiyu gives a faint murmur. Suyeon pours half a cup of plain hot water. Zihuan takes the cup, but she is also managing the flow of information in the room.
How so?
She looks at Shishu and silently shakes her head. She is explicitly warning her to stop talking.
Zihuan recognizes that the environment needs to be sterilized of any further volatile information.
Perfectly said. She physically props Daiyu up. Daiyu takes one sip of hot water. Zihuan tries to pull the cup away, assuming that is all the exertion Daiyu can handle, but Daiyu indicates she wants another.
Just the physical struggle to lift her head for a sip of water.
2 sips of hot water. That is the biological turning point where the extreme yin shifts to yang.
And then, after she rests, Daiyu opens her eyes and dismisses Shishu. She says, "Go back and give my regards to your young lady." It is the polite etiquette of a highborn lady, but she is effectively closing the intelligence-gathering operation.
Exactly. She got what she needed.
She solved the puzzle in her own mind, and now she is dismissing the asset.
Which leads to a profound misunderstanding among the staff. When the elders arrive, expecting a corpse, they find a conscious, polite young woman.
It must have been so confusing for them.
It was. Later, when the maids debrief, they conclude that this sudden recovery must be fate. They use the phrase, "a heart disease requires heart medicine." They assume the medicine was destiny-affirming Daiyu and Baoyu's love. They even make a pact to never speak of outside engagements again.
Which is the ultimate tragic irony here. The maids think they have secured the environment. Daiyu thinks she has unlocked the secret to her survival.
But they are entirely wrong.
They are so wrong. Because while Daiyu is resting comfortably in the illusion of control, the actual decision-makers are assembling in the boardroom to construct a completely different reality.
And this brings us to the second thread, the cold, institutional calculation of the matriarchs.
Yeah. The narrative shifts us from the intimate, emotionally charged bedroom to a high-level strategic alignment meeting.
It really feels like a corporate boardroom.
It does. Grandmother Jia, Lady Wang, Lady Xing, and Xifeng all gather. And they are not oblivious. They notice Dayi's sudden, miraculous recovery just as quickly as her sudden declining.
Right. Grandmother Jia connects the dots and realizes Daiyu is developing romantic feelings for Baoyu.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. If you, listening to this, have ever survived a massive corporate restructuring, you know the exact feeling.
Oh, absolutely.
You are sitting at your desk, doing your job, completely unaware that 3 floors up, executives are looking at a spreadsheet and deciding your entire department is obsolete.
Such a terrifying reality.
Grandmother Jia is acting as the CEO here. She looks at Daiyu, who is essentially a brilliant, deeply invested co-founder of this family's emotional core, right?
Yes.
And she decides she's a liability. But isn't Grandmother Jia supposed to be Daiyu's loving grandmother? How can she be so incredibly cold?
Because the socioeconomic mechanisms of Qing dynasty noble marriages demand this kind of ruthless calculation. Marriage in this context is not a mechanism for personal fulfillment.
It's not about love at all.
Not at all. It is an institution designed for wealth preservation, political alliance, and biological succession. Grandmother Jia explicitly states that keeping Daiyu and Baoyu so closely intertwined is unseemly and breaks the bounds of proper structure.
And Lady Wang, who is Baoyu's mother, she immediately supports this, right?
She does. She argues that Daiyu is calculating while Baoyu is naive.
Wow.
She is essentially saying that Daiyu has the capacity to manipulate the heir to the family fortune, and then Grandmother Jia delivers the final devastating performance review.
What does she say?
She says, Daiyu's quirkiness is her good point, but it's also the reason I don't want to match her with him.
Quirkiness. I really need to unpack that word. What does it actually mean in this text?
The Chinese text implies a kind of sensitive, poetic, individualistic nature.
Like an artist.
Exactly. Grandmother Jia acknowledges that this makes Daiyu a beautiful soul. But those exact traits are fatal flaws for a future matriarch.
Because the job description of a matriarch is completely different.
Precisely. A matriarch managing a household of hundreds of servants, immense wealth, and delicate political ties cannot afford to be emotionally volatile or purely poetic. She must be stoic, diplomatic, and pragmatic.
I am still struggling to reconcile that with the fact that Grandmother Jia is Daiyu's own flesh and blood. I mean, Daiyu is the orphan child of Grandmother Jia's favorite deceased daughter.
It is incredibly harsh, but the survival of the clan supersedes individual affection. Always. And Grandmother Jia introduces the ultimate risk factor, biology.
Right, the succession.
She states, moreover, Daiyu is so weak and frail, I fear she will not have a long life. In the calculus of dynastic survival, investing your primary male heir in a woman who might die before producing the next generation is just an unacceptable vulnerability.
So the CEO makes the call to go with a safer investment.
Yes, she announces that another young woman, Baochai, is the most suitable candidate.
And Baochai is, what, the opposite of Daiyu?
Very much so. Baochai is robust, emotionally attached, and adheres strictly to social protocols.
But the board of directors immediately identifies a massive operational risk. Lady Wang points out that if Daiyu finds out about this decision, it will literally kill her. We just saw her almost die over a fake rumor.
Exactly. The stakes are established.
So what is their mitigation strategy? Do they, find Daiyu a suitable match first to soften the blow?
You would think so, but they do not. Grandmother Jia dictates that Baoyu must be married first because he carries the family name, whereas Daiyu is technically a guest with a different surname.
Right.
The mitigation strategy they settle on is active, systemic gaslighting.
Wow, just a complete cover-up.
They will proceed with the Baochai engagement, but they will construct an impenetrable wall of silence around Daiyu.
think about the psychological horror of this double secret. Upstairs, Daiyu believes the great secret is that she is the chosen one.
She is literally sipping water thinking she won.
Downstairs, the matriarchs establish the actual secret, that Daiyu has been explicitly rejected and is being kept in the dark simply to prevent her from causing an inconvenient scene by dying.
It's chilling. And to enforce a secret of this magnitude across a household of hundreds of gossiping servants, you need a mechanism of terror.
Which brings us to Shifeng, the operational manager. Grandmother Jia tasks her with tightening discipline.
Yes.
And Shifeng turns to the servants and issues a directive regarding the engagement news. Cite the specific rule she lays down, because it's intense.
She says, if anyone talks too much, watch your skin. Or watch your hide.
Watch your skin. That is not a metaphor, is it?
Not at all. In this legal structure, a servant who compromises a strategic family secret can be subjected to brutal physical beatings, sold to traffickers, or simply killed.
So the Feng is establishing an authoritarian regime of silence to protect the corporate decision.
That's exactly what she is doing.
And this is where the genius of the source material just shines, because it refuses to let its characters be one-dimensional villains. Right after Shifeng acts as the ruthless enforcer of this gaslighting campaign, she steps out of the boardroom and into the Grandview Garden to enforce the rules.
And we witness an entirely different application of her power.
It's such a pivot.
We shift from the high-level political machinations to the gritty sociology of the servant class. Shifeng is patrolling the garden when she encounters an old servant woman shouting and causing a massive disruption.
And Shifeng, being Shifeng, demands to know what the racket is about.
Right. The old woman's defense is incredibly revealing about the class warfare happening beneath the surface of this supposed paradise.
What's her defense?
She says she was accused of stealing a red jacket by the maid of Jingshua.
Remind us who Shuyan is.
Xian is a relative who is allowed to live in the garden, but her immediate family is destitute. They have no money.
Okay.
So the old servant essentially tells Shifeng, this garden belongs to the real mistresses, not to poor guests like her. How dare her maid call me a thief?
The servant is attempting to leverage the underlying socio-economic reality. She assumes Shifeng, who we know respects wealth and power above all else, will side with the staff of the wealthy owners against a financially useless guest.
Yes, she thinks she has Shifeng figured out. It highlights how the garden functions as a microcosm of societal corruption. When institutional rules fail, the strong just prey on the weak.
But Shifeng's reaction completely shatters the old woman's assumption. Doesn't she literally spit in her face?
She does. She spits in her face and orders the woman fired immediately.
Wow.
Because Shifeng recognizes that while Xian may be poor, she still holds the title of lady and guest. For a servant to publicly berate a guest is a catastrophic breakdown of the fundamental hierarchy.
If that boundary falls, the entire system collapses.
Precisely. Xian herself rushes out to de-escalate. She is terrified of causing trouble. She tries to dismiss the theft, saying it was just an old red jacket and her maid was foolish to ask about it.
She just wants to be invisible.
Exactly. She invites Shifeng inside to sit down. And this is where we see the acuity of Shifeng's observation. She is not just listening to Xian's apologies. She is visually auditing Xian's living conditions.
Yes. We really need to talk about what Shifeng sees, because it establishes this concept of stealth dignity.
Stealth dignity, I like that.
Right. Because if you think about modern stealth wealth, a billionaire wearing an unbranded $3,000 gray cashmere sweater to signal status without showing off.
Right, the quiet luxury thing.
Exactly. Shuden is practicing the inverse. She's practicing stealth dignity. Shifeng notices that Xian's clothes are incredibly thin, worn out, and just utterly insufficient for the freezing winter weather.
But Shifeng also observes what is not happening.
What do you mean?
She looks at the expensive, high-status, decorative items placed in the room by the matriarchs.
The gifts they gave her to make the room look nice.
Yes, and Xian has not touched them. A lesser person in her desperate financial situation would have secretly pawned those decorations to buy food or coal.
To survive.
But Xian has not. She refuses to complain, she refuses to steal, and she refuses to compromise her integrity even while literally freezing. The text uses the phrase able to endure poverty to describe her stoicism.
Why does Shifeng, someone who spends every waking hour manipulating people and hoarding resources, respond to this with such profound respect? I mean, is it simply because Xian is the only person in this entire compound who isn't trying to run a scam?
I think that's exactly it. Shifeng is exhausted by the constant transactional nature of her existence. Everyone wants something from her.
Yeah.
In Xuyuan, she recognizes an impenetrable core of genuine moral fortitude. It moves Shifeng to perform a rare act of unprompted, unilateral generosity.
Which is so out of character for her.
It really is. She returns to her quarters and instructs her trusted maid, Pinger, to assemble a specific wardrobe for Xian.
And the mechanism of this gift is fascinating because clothing in this environment is not just fabric, right? It is visual currency.
It's armor.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Detail the specific garments Shifeng sends because it's so specific.
She sends a large red crepe jacket, a pine green silk-lined jacket, a treasure blue brocade padded skirt, and a silver ermine coat.
Treasure blue brocade padded skirt. Just the specificity of that. How does this specific inventory function as armor for Xuyuan?
Well, in a highly stratified society, servants judge a person's worth entirely by outward markers of wealth. A poor guest in thin cotton is an easy target for bullying, as we just saw with the old woman.
They smell blood in the water.
Exactly. By equipping Xuyuan with silk, brocade, and ermine fur, Shifeng is physically altering Xuyuan's socioeconomic footprint.
She is basically branding her as protected.
Yes. She is signaling to every servant in the garden. This person carries my protection and possesses the visual markers of high status. Do not cross her. It is a transfer of both thermal warmth and political power.
But when Xifeng's maid, Fenger, delivers this armor, Xian rejects it entirely.
She does.
She literally tips the maid with a small purse just to take the clothes away. Why? If you are freezing and the boss sends you a fur coat, why would you turn it away?
Because Xian understands the perilous optics of a sudden windfall. She just had a public altercation about a stolen jacket, remember?
Right. The timing is terrible.
If she immediately accepts a luxury wardrobe from the operational manager, the entire servant class will assume she staged the theft to extort free goods from the family.
Ugh. They'll think she's a grifter.
Exactly. In an environment where everyone is running a scam, she is terrified of being perceived as a grifter. Her stealth dignity demands she refuse the charity to maintain her moral high ground.
Which forces Kafeng's camp to deploy an incredibly sophisticated psychological manipulation just to give a gift.
It really takes a strategic mastermind.
Pinger, who is Chifeng's most emotionally intelligent strategist, returns with the clothes. She doesn't appeal to Shuyan's need for warmth, does she?
No, she doesn't mention the cold at all. Instead, she weaponizes social obligation. Pinger says, if you don't accept these clothes, it's either because you think they are too old or because you look down on my mistress. If I take them back, she won't forgive me.
Wow. So Pinger traps Shuyan in a paradox of etiquette.
She really does.
By framing the refusal as an insult to Shifeng's face and a threat to Pinger's own safety from punishment, Shuyan's empathy and social conditioning force her to accept the garments.
She blushes and says, if you put it that way, I don't dare not to accept.
It is a masterful use of coercive etiquette for a benevolent outcome.
It is a beautiful moment.
But it also exposes a terrifying underlying reality, doesn't it? If a well-born guest like Shuyan is freezing in her room and relies on the accidental, unilateral mercy of a single manager to survive the winter, it means the institutional safety net of this family has completely disintegrated.
There is no systemic justice here. None.
That breakdown of systemic justice acts as the perfect bridge to our final thread. Because while Xian is enduring the quiet, freezing hostility of the Jia garden with this stoic grace, her fiancé, Zhu Ke, is attempting to survive a much louder, structurally aggressive form of toxicity in his own household.
Right, we move from the subtle manipulations of the garden to the outright warfare of the Zhu family compound.
Zhu Ke is basically holding the entire household together because his older cousin is away facing severe legal trouble.
Yes.
Zhu Ke is trying to purge the corrupt influences, the foxes and dogs, who have been bleeding the family dry. And he is doing all of this while living under the same roof as his cousin's wife, Jiao Jingwei.
And to understand Suki's vulnerability here, we really must examine the specific societal laws governing his existence.
Set the stage for us. What are the rules?
He is a young, unmarried man, acting as the head of a household that includes his volatile, morally bankrupt sister-in-law.
Okay.
In a society predicated on strict gender segregation and the absolute preservation of female virtue, an unmarried man living in close proximity to a female relative by marriage is walking a razor's edge of scandal.
He is a walking liability to himself.
Absolutely.
So Shuki is sitting alone in his room at night, exhausted, just thinking about how deeply unfair the universe is. He knows his fiancée, Shuyan, is suffering in poverty, while his vicious sister-in-law, Jingwenyi, holds all the wealth and power.
It's a really depressing contrast for him.
He is so frustrated. He writes a poem comparing himself and Shuyan to dragons in shallow water. What does that specific metaphor reveal about his psychological state?
The dragon in shallow water is a classical motif for immense potential or noble character that is thwarted by miserable, limiting circumstances. A dragon belongs in the boundless ocean, right?
Right.
But stuck in the mud, it is humiliated and powerless. He writes, "Together in the mud, we suffer much."
Oh, sad.
He recognizes that both he and Shuan possess the moral fortitude of dragons, but they are trapped by the systemic failures of their respective households.
He writes this vulnerable poem, gets embarrassed, and tucks it away in a book. He is at his absolute lowest, loneliest point, and it is precisely at this moment of maximum vulnerability that his door opens.
Of course it is.
A maid named Bochan walks in. Bochan is the personal maid to that toxic sister-in-law, Jingui.
And the mere physical act of Bochan crossing that threshold late at night shatters multiple rules of propriety.
Just her walking in the door.
Just walking in. She is a young female servant entering the private quarters of a young, unmarried male relative late at night without an explicit chaperone-approved reason.
She walks in with a mischievous smile, carrying a box containing fruit and a pot of wine. She says the first mistress, Jingui, sent it to thank him for his hard work on the legal case.
And Zue immediately tries to establish distance. He asks why Jingui didn't just send a younger maid.
He's trying to enforce the rule.
Exactly. And Bao-chan systematically dismantles those boundaries. She tells him to drop the formal language. She explicitly states that Jingui wanted this delivered secretly and personally because people in the house gossip too much.
Red flags everywhere.
She even implies an intimate equivalence, saying serving the older brother is the same as serving the younger brother.
So what does this all mean? If you've ever worked as a legal compliance officer in a notoriously corrupt corporation, you recognize this exact scenario.
Oh, for sure.
You're trying to clean up the books, and suddenly, a compromised executive sends an undocumented gift to your personal residence. Jinki isn't just dealing with a late-night snack. He is navigating a potential honey trap.
A very dangerous honey trap.
But let me push back a little. Is he overreacting? I mean, couldn't the fruit just be fruit? Sometimes a plate of fruit is just a plate of fruit, right?
The mechanics of the honey trap require him to assume the absolute worst. Jingui has an established reputation for ruthlessness, vanity, and a complete disregard for moral boundaries.
So he can't give her the benefit of the doubt.
Never. If Suke accepts the secret wine and drinks it, he lowers his physical inhibitions. But more importantly, he establishes a precedent of secret, late-night complicity with Jingui's inner circle.
He becomes complicit.
Yes. If Jingui decides to scream in the middle of the night and claim Suke assaulted her or her maid, the presence of that secretly delivered wine in his room is the physical evidence that will ensure his execution or exile.
Wow. You could literally see his brain processing the legal and social ramifications in real time. He realizes he cannot outright reject the gift because insulting Jingui will trigger her immediate explosive wrath.
Right, he's trapped.
So he attempts a brilliant compromise. He accepts the fruit, but rejects the wine.
It is an attempt to maintain plausible deniability. Accepting the fruit acknowledges the polite gesture of thanks for his legal work.
Right.
Rejecting the wine refuses the intoxicating, compromising element of the trap. He claims a low tolerance for alcohol, attempting to use his physical biology as an excuse to avoid social entanglement.
I'd love to, but my stomach just can't handle it, basically.
Exactly.
But Baocan refuses to take the wine back. She claims Jingui will punish her for failing the mission, and as she leaves, she drops a psychological nuclear bomb.
She really does.
She smiles, points toward Jingui's inner rooms, and says she might even come over personally later to thank you.
The threat of a direct late-night visit from the sister-in-law escalates the situation from a suspicious overture to an imminent, catastrophic scandal.
Shuke is genuinely terrified. You can see his physical reaction. He goes from polite to awkward to genuinely frightened. He stammers out a desperate reminder of their familial boundaries, telling Baocan not to let Jingui catch a chill and that they don't need to stand on ceremony.
He's pleading with her.
He is, but Baocan just laughs and walks away. Yuke is left entirely alone with the wine, the fruit, and a spiraling sense of panic.
He runs through all the scenarios.
Right. Is Jingui actually grateful? Unlikely. Is Baocan acting independently because she has a crush on him? Possible, but dangerous. Is Jingwei trying to seduce him because of her vanity? Terrifying.
And then the darkest timeline.
What if Jingwei hates his fiancée, Shuyan, and has engineered this exact scenario to frame Zhuge, ruin his reputation, and drag him down into the mud with her?
That is the ultimate terror of the dragon in shallow water. He is trying to remain pure in a corrupt environment, but the environment has the power to destroy him using his own proximity to it.
His only defense is his ability to read the whispers, the smiles, and the hidden agendas behind a pot of wine. And the narrative refuses to give Zuike, or us, any resolution.
No neat bow at the end.
Nope. Just as Zuki is standing in his room, spiraling into sheer panic, completely unable to determine if he is the target of a seduction or a setup. The text delivers one final, haunting detail.
Right at the absolute peak of his cognitive dissonance.
The text says, just as he was unable to make up his mind, he suddenly heard a foof laugh from right outside his window. It startled him so much he jumped.
A sound emerging from the absolute darkness, completely unexplained.
I want you, listening to this right now, to sit with that image. Imagine you are Zhuge. You are holding your breath, trying to navigate a corrupt house that is actively trying to pull you under. You are staring at a pot of wine that could destroy your life. And right outside your window, hidden in the pitch black, someone is laughing at you.
It's terrifying. Who is it?
Right. Is it Baoshan spying to see if he drank the wine? Is it Jingui preparing to spring the trap and scream? Or is it just a random servant entirely unaware of the terror inside the room? In a world where every whisper can cure you or kill you, where corporate matriarchs plot your obsolescence behind closed doors, and where midnight gifts come laced with hidden daggers, how much of your life is shaped by the conversations you aren't allowed to hear? Who is laughing in the dark outside your window?
It really forces us to interrogate the invisible power structures and the flow of information that dictate our own realities, long after the chapter ends.